just wrapping up. Thanks, Kate. We're just wrapping up a couple of things. Full disclosure, this is the first time we have done this this format. So bear with us as we work through some of the challenges of a new format with a presenter who has been out of the country for 5 of the last 6 weeks. Go ahead and get started. I guess yep, we are good. All right. Hey, Kate, I think I can disable the waiting room.
Yep, no problem.
Can you do it? I can't figure.
I got it.
You are the best. All right. Tom, where is Torbay?
In Devon, in the southwest.
Nice. How's your weather there?
Glorious.
That's awesome.
That's why we're called the English Riviera.
Ooh, I will have to check that out next time I'm over that direction. Excellent. I see Daniel joined us. Hey, Daniel, nice to have you again.
Hi, Noel. I'm happy to be here. Hello, everyone.
Daniel, remind me, where are you based?
Based in Lusaka, Zambia.
In Zambia.
Yes.
I feel very guilty. I was in Africa for a month in Kenya and Tanzania. And I never reached out to any of you to say, hey, I'll be here. But I was also on a tour that was really busy.
No worries. We're always grateful to actually tap into your knowledge in such platforms.
Well, the next time, let me see, is my video off? I didn't mean to do that. The next time I'm in Africa, which I will be over there, there we go. That's what I was trying to do. I will let you all know and try to meet up with some folks. I may be going back in 2026 to the Western Africa. So,
that would be great.
It would be nice. So this is a really small group. We had a lot of people who expressed interest, and a lot of them, I'm sure, will be viewing the recording. So while we're going to be using things like chats, just feel free to jump in. This is intended to be an open conversation. So as we get started, the topic of our conversation today is trust in the era of AI. A few pieces of housekeeping as we get started. The webinar is being recorded, and we will send you a link to the recording so you can view it for up to 30 days. As I mentioned, this is intended to be a discussion, so please jump in and share your points of view and ask your questions. And if you don't want to jump in right then, but you have a question you don't want to lose, go ahead and put it in the chat. And again, if you don't mind turning your camera on, it would be great to have some faces to see as we're doing this. Most of all, I want this to be an enjoyable experience as we explore the topic of trust in the era of AI. So for those of you who don't know me, I am the CEO of Trusted Advisor Associates. My name is Noelle Michaelenko. I took over from the founder, Charlie, during the pandemic when he retired. So I've been with Trusted Advisor Associates full-time for, oh my gosh, Tracy, it's coming up on 10 years, since 2015. And the first time I worked with Trusted Advisor was back in 2009 when I started as a client. My background comes from consulting, primarily in the technology space. So when I was a full-time technology consultant, AI was still pretty much just a buzzword, right? It was the topic of some movies or of what people thought might change in the future. And in the past 10 years, the development of AI has been so massive and so fast, it's now become a part of our everyday lives. I do have an education, primarily business oriented. I did my undergraduate work in St. Louis, where I'm from. St. Louis, Missouri is in the middle of the country. We call it the Midwest here in the United States. I have a Bachelor of Science in Business, a Bachelor of Arts in French, and then I got a Master's in Business Administration here at the University of Virginia. And I have been in Virginia for longer than I'd care to admit, over 30 years now. So for those of you who don't know Trusted Advisor Associates, we help people just like you understand how to build trust in professional relationships. Our work is founded on these 3 books: The Trusted Advisor, which was originally written in 2001 and then reprised in 2021. Trust-Based Selling, which takes those trust concepts and looks at them specifically in a sales orientation. And then the Trusted Advisor Field Book, which is a practical application of trust in common business situations. We've been studying trust and writing about trust and doing workshops and providing learning for over 20 years. And I'm really excited to see where this new era takes us as we talk about trust. So Kate, have I vamped long enough for you to get our polls up?
Yes, you have.
Excellent, thank you. Let's start by just understanding a little bit about your experience with artificial intelligence. And I'm going to start by just asking you, when did you last intentionally use AI? And welcome to those of you who are still joining us. Please turn on your cameras if you're willing. This is going to be a small discussion. Right, 2 folks have answered. I know there are more of you here. Go ahead and just answer in the poll. We'll give you 10 more seconds. I think we have some lurkers. All right, so thanks to those of you who did answer. As you can see, one of you has used it in the past week and one of you has used it in the past month. I will be honest with you, I was using it 10 minutes ago as we were getting ready for this presentation. In fact, a lot of what I brought into this conversation comes from my own use of AI. Now, our next poll is just to get a sense of what you use it to do. So do you use it to create things, maybe to write, or to create pictures or videos? Maybe you use it to research topics. And you're only going to be able to choose one of these, I think. Maybe you've used it, maybe you've experienced it as an AI bot when you're looking for support or looking to reach out to someone, or analyzing it. And if you've never used AI at all, that's fine too. At least never intentionally. Most people have. All right, great. So of those of you who have used AI recently, a couple of you have been using it to create, and a couple of you have experienced or interacted with an AI bot, right? And they're getting really more ubiquitous. I know just about every site I go on now, except for my own, has something where you can ask questions, and they've automated a lot of the support to make it easier for people. So I want to know from your perspective, what drew you to this conversation? And if you would just pull up the chat and share with everybody, what's one thing you want to know about trust in AI? Oh, thanks, Kate. Kate's ahead of me. And by the way, Kate Dozie is here as our producer, and she's just kind of hanging in the background. She'll be helping if you have any technical issues. Feel free to reach out to Kate. Tracy, so what's real and what's fake? Yeah. What else are you curious about? Or what are the others of you curious about? Daniel, definitely accuracy, right? And feel free to come off mute and just talk. Tom, are you typing something in? Because I was going to keep talking.
Yeah, I'm typing.
Okay.
I'm trying to format my thinking at the same time.
We don't leave you time for that.
Ah.
You must go quickly. So when we think about AI and trust in the context of AI, this is really how can we use it to grow and do more rather than replace? I love that, Tom. What a fantastic curiosity. I came up with this topic a couple of months ago, of course, right before I left the country for 6 weeks. And it's been churning in the back of my mind because one of the things that really stands out for me about trust, and it's central to how we talk about trust here at Trusted Advisor Associates, is that trust is personal. And for 15 years now, I have taught people that trust occurs between two people. And suddenly here I am faced with this idea of how do we talk about trust in the context of AI? So I did some research and I looked at what other people are saying about what does it even mean. I came up with what I thought were the two best definitions that I saw, which is one, which is taken from an article written just a few years ago by two authors, Glickson and Woolley. And they define trust in the context of AI as the tendency to take a meaningful risk while believing in a high chance of a positive outcome. And then a similar definition from just a year later, increase in the faith that in the trustworthy intentions of others, or the confidence people place in others based on how they feel about them. Right. So this really triggered kind of, again, that idea of we don't really trust machines. We don't trust organizations. We really trust people. So who is it that we're actually trusting? Is it the AI system itself? Is it the technical people who created the AI system, who create the algorithms and build the libraries on which the AI operates? Or is it the owner of the AI system, the company that has the AI system for a specified purpose? And I want to open this up to you all. When you think about trusting in the context of AI, or when you think about trust in the context of AI, what are you thinking about? Just come off mute. You can use chat if you want, but I'd rather just hear from you. What are you thinking when you're thinking about trust?
I guess I'd say that initially I would have only been thinking about the system itself, but actually your three questions there, I think what it demonstrates is that trust in relation to AI has to be layered, because you have to trust in the system itself in terms of its technical capacity to be able to come up with stuff. That is going to be reliant on what it's learned, and that's going to be driven by what it's been taught, which comes obviously from the creators and from the owners. In terms of, you mentioned earlier about the importance of intent. I'm not sure that a computer can have intent, but the creators, they have intent, and if their intent is not good, then you can have that as a consequence programmed into the AI.
Yeah. And it's interesting to me, Tom, that you use the word intent, because there have been very notable AI failures through no bad intent.
Hmm.
There's a lot of discussion about bias in AI algorithms. And there's no intention to introduce that bias. It is literally because the people who are creating the system or the people who are teaching, creating those libraries, maybe lack awareness of their own biases, I would say.
I think programming of computers is so massively complex. You can make a change in one place and it has an impact somewhere else. And half the time the programmers don't notice. That's why we have bug checking and why we have, the system failure that happened only a couple of months ago with which affected Microsoft. There was no intent in that, but it happened, and that's and I guess in that sense it's no different to humans anyway, where we can have bias without realizing we have bias.
Really good point. So one of the things I'm wondering if I've covered in here is accountability. Hi, Carmen, welcome. And Daniel, I want to open this up. What are your thoughts about what or who are we actually trusting when we talk about trust in AI?
Yeah, first of all, Noel, sorry, I can't turn on video. I'm trying to save some energy and bandwidth as well here. We've been having issues in Zambia
Yes.
with power, which has also affected the network. So keeps dropping and coming. Yeah,
Okay.
so I think we are trusting the system here. I'm thinking of the system and the creator, creator maybe in terms of content, and then the system in terms of it not being manipulated, by other factors. So I'm looking at system and creator. Creator, it's because of the input. The input would come from the creator. So what has been put in there is what probably it will give out. But yet, if there is some manipulation somewhere without maybe even the owner knowing, you want to think that probably maybe you may not get the best out of it, or probably maybe it may, I don't know if you'd say maybe better or something like that. Yeah, but definitely it calls for faith, and talking of intent as well. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it does. And risk, that word faith, it really comes down to someone's willingness to risk, to take a risk, because that's what faith is. It's a willingness to take a risk. I like that. Tracy, do you want to jump in? You're welcome to just lurk. Tracy is on our team. I'm calling her out.
I'll jump in sometimes.
Okay. Just not right this minute.
Not right that's this minute.
Okay. So as I think about the benefits and challenges of AI, right? When we're talking about trust, there's, and it's similar to this intent. There's how are we using it, right? And the pros, the benefits of AI, I think are fairly clear. Efficiency, scope and reach, even as good as the internet is. Like I have started using an AI engine called Perplexity. And one of the reasons that I love Perplexity, I'll put the name of it in the chat. One of the reasons that I love Perplexity is because it returns results with sources. So I can go back and I can read those sources and make sure that what I'm looking at is in context. Right. And so it's a lot more efficient for me and gets me a broader set of results faster than if I were to type in just a single search in a search engine. Innovation, which I think, Tom, is related to what you were talking about or what you were curious about at the beginning. How do you use it to grow and do more rather than just replace? And I have some ideas. I have some things that I'm thinking about. I'll just share them right now. there's a company that I've been involved with for about a year called Relate Technologies. Relate is actually Relate Research and Technologies. And they came to Trusted Advisor Associates and asked us if we could help them build a library for a generative AI to assess trust behavior. And we've focused primarily on the behaviors that indicate trustworthiness. It's intended to be a sales tool or a relationship management tool. And through working with this company with their generative AI, we've created a library where they can very quickly identify whether or not a presenter is demonstrating trustworthy behavior. As a side to that, the research side of the Relate Technologies is that in gathering that information, it's assessing and combing through transcripts of multiple meetings. And so the power of the AI also allows it to start pulling together themes and seeing networks across independent individual meetings. So suddenly where the research comes in is we're starting to surface common client needs, common client concerns, right? So the AI, in addition to assessing the behavior of the presenter, is also gathering that data and putting it together in a way that even the best sales pipeline tool really doesn't allow for, because you have individual people going in and tracking their individual interactions. Now we have one generative AI that is able to look across all of those interactions and synthesize things that the individuals may not notice or may not have become aware of. So to me, that's one of the biggest powers of AI, is that networking ability to pull things together. And then, of course, automating repetitive tasks, the things like the AI bots that we have now in support, where you can either go into an FAQ or you can just type in a specific question, and the AI bot will help you refine the question and get answers where you want.
I think that first example is quite interesting, because the first thing that came into my mind was 1984, because that really sounds like Big Brother. And I just wonder how overt people, that is communicated to people that is going on, because it's like an invisible extra member of every meeting.
It is. And Tom, you're absolutely right. That is the biggest barrier that we've run into in talking with, well, I shouldn't say we, I'm not involved in the sales of it. But that has been the biggest barrier, is the concern. And it's twofold. One is the concern that salespeople will feel like they're being watched and judged without context.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about it in the context of sales, a sales manager might observe 2 or 3 sales meetings a month for each of their salespeople, maybe, if they're lucky. Everything else just goes on results. And the gap in there, then the sales managers have to provide feedback and try to help their sales teams improve with very little information. Or what happens if they go on a sales call and the salesperson's having an off day? Or worse, what happens if they go on a sales call and the salesperson's having a really good day that's not indicative of their performance? So in a sense, that's a real concern for people, without taking into account the benefit of having that much more data.
Yeah, it's also quite a one-dimensional capture as well, isn't it? Because if it's taking it from transcripts, then unless the algorithm is massively intelligent to be able to pick up on tone of voice, pace, and all of those things, and then there's equally if you're monitoring a sales conversation, if you're even in the room, especially, what you'll be aware of is body language. We talk about how much of a proportion of communication is through body language. So there's a risk, I guess, that an AI working in a one-dimensional way can make assumptions because it's not got the full picture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's, I feel I would be doing a disservice to relate research and technology, to leave it just at that. So at the risk of appearing defensive, there is a lot more depth to that system. They're not doing vocal cues or video cues yet. That is, we felt, a step too far. They do, however, have additional feedback mechanisms, both real time and post meeting, to where people can literally everything from a thumbs up, thumbs down to push the button if you're bored. If you come back to future meetings, I'm going to launch Relate. Tracy, heads up, I'm going to launch Relate, the Relate platform, and some of our webinars. And
Right.
you'll have the option to use it. You can opt into it. So we'll see. I'm excited. It's only been available. It's been available on their native platform for about 6 months, on Teams for about 4 months, and it just became available on Zoom in the past month. And that's
Right.
primarily how we work. So I'm looking forward to putting it in practice. But to your point, this privacy concerns, right? This is the number one challenge, or the number one concern, is people are worried about what happens to the information. How is it going to be used, right? Which is connected with the misuse of AI. And who's going to have access to it, right? Obviously, the algorithm misuse, the bias that's brought into algorithms, intentionally or unintentional, safety and control. There are still a lot of people who worry about AI getting away from its creators. I remember how from, gosh, what was that? 2001: A Space Odyssey, back in the 60s?
Yeah, back in the 60s, yeah.
Sorry if my cat, we've been gone, my cats are crazy. The misuse of AI, the cyber security is very concerned about it, right? Because just as all of these benefits can be used for good, they can also be used for evil. And I think the final con around it is the lack of transparency, not knowing when AI is being used and not being able to understand how the algorithms are created. Buddy, not today. Come on. Other thoughts? What else? Tom, it's turning out to just be you and me. But this is a conversation. Thank you.
I'm very privileged.
Are there other benefits and challenges that, the cons of AIs that come to mind when you think about it?
I think certainly in terms of the cons, it's a bit like medical progress if you think, let's touch a really hot potato topic if you want something around fertility treatment. There's a whole load of ethical stuff around that. But 200 years ago, it wasn't an issue because the medical profession hadn't got to that point. And I think that's the same with AI, is that we're developing stuff now, and its capabilities raise issues that before we haven't had to worry about, or if we have had to worry about them, it's only been a small thing. We only have to worry about the education of the person we're talking to, the person in front of us. What are their biases? And now all of a sudden we've got something that could become quite ubiquitous, and that the culture from which those places come, or which those AIs come, will also be really important, because an AI perhaps develops in the West will look at the Middle East, the Far East, Eastern Europe even, and may react in the wrong way for those cultures, and it's how we can make sure that doesn't happen. Otherwise, potentially, I guess sometime into the future, we'll all be the same. Because culture will have been forced down that direction because of AI. And I mean, it's interesting you mentioned about how, because that when it happened, in terms of the fictional story, was a conflict of programming, because it was the humans had been told this is what the mission is, But Hal had been told something different. And when the humans conflicted with the mission, then the programming didn't know what to do, so it started making it up, and that's when things went wrong. And I think that goes back to the same thing, which is algorithms get increasingly complicated, but I think there's a lot of unforeseen consequences because we just don't know. We are not, and that's not just about AI getting ahead of the game. It's just about the fact that I think we do things thinking, yes, this is probably going to be the result. But that's why you do all the bug checking and all of that, because invariably something does go wrong. It's the same, again, refer it back to medical treatment. The human body is so massively complicated. I have a huge amount of respect for doctors, nurses, everyone that works in there. But the reality is they don't know everything. I guess I refer particularly to infertility treatment. We have and have had for 30, 40 years an established a way of addressing infertility. But the reality is that when you go through an infertility treatment, the doctors don't know for certain if it's going to work or not. And that's because they're stupid. That's because there is so many unknown factors. And I think we're going to have the same thing with AI. I'm not sure whether actually the implications with AI are much bigger because it will get its fingers everywhere.
Yeah, as you're talking, Tom, I'm thinking kind of to add on to that, is it really a new challenge, or is it just the size of the challenge is growing exponentially? I mean, 10 years ago here in the US, we had a bank, Wells Fargo, who went through massive problems because they found out that the bankers on the retail side were opening up fake accounts. They were opening up fake credit cards and opening up fake accounts. And it turned out when they really looked into it, it was related back to a miscommunication where the CEO said, as a communication kind of it was part of their strategy, but he came up with the phrase 8 is great because it rhymed. And what he was referring to was wanting to have every person who banked with Wells Fargo have up to 8. Like the ideal was, let's try to get them to have 8 different accounts, credit cards, loans, right? He was talking about cross-selling, and it got mistranslated down and it got built into individuals' performance incentives until people started acting in a way that was counter to the good of their clients. Mm-hmm. And so if AI, to me, the same thing can happen with AI. It's a matter of scope and scale. I don't know. I'm thinking out loud.
Yeah, it's interesting because what you're doing is comparing a human reaction to a computer reaction as well, which shows how close we are perceiving AI to becoming human. But at the end of the day, it is just a very complicated algorithm, isn't it? And if that algorithm is not very good, and considering we don't actually know what the algorithm is that runs us, what's the central algorithm that the human brain uses? But we try to automate it, and that leads to problems. I mean, I used to about 15 years ago, I worked for one of the commercial banks in this country, and I saw exactly that. Their people's performance was rewarded in a certain way, and that drove particular behaviors. And when some of those behaviors were linked to fear, as in didn't lead to reward but punishment for not achieving, then they started faking signatures and that to just do that sort of thing. AI is probably not going to work in quite the same way, but if it's I don't know how you reward an AI, but if AI picks up something, this is a good thing and this is not, which will be down again to how it's programmed by the creators, by the owners, then that could potentially either drive behavior that they fully expect, or just as likely, unexpected behavior. You go back to when, if you think it was a sort of AI, that Black Friday was created because they introduced the automation of stock transactions. A certain type of activity suddenly happened. The AI or the algorithm back then was programmed to react in a certain way, but what it didn't have was any fail safes, and that's why you suddenly saw all this stock being dumped, because the computers were going, yeah, let's get rid of it all.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you likened me comparing AI to humans. I was actually thinking about it in the other way, that humans are behaving like AI, as though they have no agency to make a decision. They're just operating based on the rules that come down with no question to it.
Yeah.
And there's no prime directive or fail safe.
Yeah, I think that's well, considering where the aspect of your organization's focus on trust, I think that whole thing about agency is really critical in terms of there are lots of people out there who will feel like they have no choice. Now, it's very easy to say, of course you have a choice, you always have a choice, but whilst that is fundamentally true, if you've got a person standing there with a gun against your head, let's take it right to the extreme, and they're telling you to do something and it's the wrong thing, of course you've got a choice, but are you going to make that choice if that's going to lead to a consequence you really don't want?
Yeah, and the much more common, of course, is I have to feed my family. Right, I know what the right thing to do is, but I need to feed my family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This is not easy stuff.
No.
Some of the reasons that come out for why we don't trust AI: the lack of understanding, it's incomprehensible, the black box, we don't know what the algorithms are, these high profile failures, the biased algorithms. IBM Watson, actually, AC Anderson, which is a cancer center here in the US, was trying to implement IBM Watson, and they just couldn't get the algorithms to work. The Watson was constantly, not constantly, but Watson was enough recommending treatments that were not appropriate for one reason or another. And then here, at least in the US, there have been multiple instances of driverless cars killing pedestrians or getting in accidents. So, the technology is not perfect, and the failures tend to be much higher profile than any of the benefits, and for good reason. Perceived threats, distrust of how the data will be used, cybersecurity threats. And then I think, again, this transparency issues. If we don't know where it comes from, it's hard for us to trust the sources and the AI generated content. When using AI, so, the kind of the purpose of this whole conversation. So how do we build trust when we're using AI? And kind of looking at those reasons people don't trust and the pros and the cons. A few things that I thought of: transparency, being transparent about when we're using AI, what our sources are, how we're using it, making sure that the algorithms are accurate and unbiased, using reality versus models. And the more real data we get into the libraries and the engines, the better the output will be versus modeling only. Having a clear policy on the usage of AI and the data handling, and then being transparent about that policy, having a clear stated policy. What else comes to mind about how we can build trust when using AI?
I don't know whether this will build trust, but one of them has to be what level of risk we are willing to take with the use of AI. Because, for example, your reality versus models example there, and I was thinking of that particularly around driverless cars, is that from some reading I did a while back, one of the reasons I believe that there were problems was because it wasn't that the AI was failing, it was that it wasn't expecting humans to do the things that humans did. And part of the reason for that is because the AI probably has a model of how a human will behave, but on one level, people would probably say humans are not logical always. At another level, you might be able to argue that actually humans are incredibly logical. It's just we don't always know what information they have to make that logical decision. And if if an AI is confronted by a pedestrian potentially crossing the road, then it's going to say, oh well, it's unlikely they're going to do that because humans don't want to get killed. But that what the AI will not know is the person distracted because they're having a bad day? Actually, do they want to do the exact thing that they're not expecting? And it's that limitation where we have to say, well, actually, that AI is, we're not perfect, and AI is not going to be perfect. It's going to get stuff wrong, and if it gets it wrong, are we happy to live with the consequences of that?
So better risk analysis and risk mitigation and
Well,
transparency around the risks.
yes, except humans, most people, I think, are risk averse to a great extent, and they will say, yeah, absolutely, no, I can understand managing risk, but I don't want it to happen.
Right. Exactly. And I know we're coming up on our time, so some ideas that I did come up with looking the other way. So how do we use AI to build trust? Right. And these are just some these are kind of from my own experience. Some of the ways I've been using AI to send out follow-up emails. I take my raw notes from a meeting and I drop them into an AI engine and say, create a follow-up email from this. And it takes my follow-up from about 30 minutes for, responding to an hour-long meeting to about 5 minutes. I still have to go through and look at it. I still have to make sure that it came out the way that I want it to. I still add in my own personalization, but it really saves time. I don't know why these are out of customer needs, right? Market segmentation. Just again, having that ability to network information from multiple sources and have the AI engine go in and get it. Responsiveness using bots, automated replies, and then innovation. I think that, to me, one of the benefits of AI is that it has the power to bubble up things that we don't even know are needs yet. And if you look at the largest technology companies and the success of the biggest founders over the last 15 to 30 years, I would say that we talk about the founders being visionaries. It's not just that they're visionaries, it's that they recognize a need that the market hasn't even recognized that it has, and they're able to consistently meet that need. So I do think that innovation, I hope that it will increase innovation, and my hope is to decrease the dissolution of value of people who come up with what they think is a good idea, but there's no true market need for it, because we lose a lot of value that way. What are your thoughts? How else can we use AI to build trust?
Well, definitely one of the things is it's going to be there's a lot of it's going to be focused on the individual. What the old "what's in it for me" question, So if you're sitting there looking at this thinking this is going to take my job in 10 years' time or next week potentially, then trust is going to be a real issue. Whereas if it's something that makes your job easier, quicker, more comfortable, more rewarding, or whatever, one of the things that does sit in there, it's a double-edged sword, but it's the democratization of certain things. And what I mean by that, so I know there's a huge amount of concern about the creative AIs that, for example, create images. And there are professionals out there who live by making images, and of course that's going to be a risk for them. I get that, but there is also going to be a group of people out there who would never ever have gone to those professionals for access to that kind of stuff, AI potentially provides them with access to it. That's not robbing the people who are doing that of jobs that they would have had, but I don't think we're quite clear yet on what the implications of that democratization are, because if you say democratization, it sounds like a really positive thing, and it should be. I've benefited from that. I've been able to do things, hence using the creative approach, you know, to ask for, oh, right, actually, this is what I want. And AI has furnished that for me. Would I have paid for that and gone elsewhere? No. So it's given me something that I would not have been able to do any other way. But if there is a sudden proliferation of quality imagery, then what will start to happen, I guess, is that the people who might have paid will start wondering, well, what's the point of me paying when I can get it for free? So like I say, it's a double-edged sword. And I don't know how we square that circle.
Is it a new problem though? Is it just, it's the same thing that we dealt with Uber versus taxi cabs? A lot of the same challenges when we went to industrialized building, right? Industrialized manufacturing versus bespoke manufacturing.
I don't know whether it's necessarily a new thing, but what it may be is it's the same problem written large because of the depth to which it can go. And as you mentioned early on, you know, AI is everywhere now. I think that sometimes the phrase AI is used when it's not really AI, and you know it looks like AI. But it isn't. It's just you know, if some of these things that they claim are AI is really AI, then 1 + 1 is AI because that's an algorithm, you know, kind of thing. So there is an element of where do we draw that line? But in terms of the fact that it is everywhere, I think it can reach, you know, so anybody could be confronted by it. You talked about using it when you're not aware. And that's already happening. So I do think it will have a bigger stretch. But like I say, that just makes the problem bigger.
All right.
Noel,
Yeah, Tracy.
when we're using AI for content generation, whether it's, like you said, a meeting summary, or maybe we're making an image, do we want to reference that we did that? Like when you put together your marketing blurb and you put, this was created in AI, will that help create more trust with our readers by saying, you know, this meeting summary was created with AI, but reviewed by me, so that I'm being open and transparent that I used AI, and then will that in turn help others trust the content more because I was transparent about that?
I don't know. Daniel, Tom, what do you think about that? Does that level of transparency help trust?
I'm staying quiet for a minute to give Daniel a chance. I'm just conscious I've just hogged everything.
No.
You know, Tom,
Noel's happy that you talk, so.
Daniel?
Yeah, you know, Noel, Tom, great conversations, but you know, like I'm breaking out, you know, somewhere. Yeah, but so even the question I didn't get it so well. Yeah, but see, I'm actually learning a lot from this. Yeah, I don't know if maybe the question can be repeated.
Yeah, Tracy asked if it would help build trust if when we use AI to create something, we're transparent and we say something about it. This was created using AI, but reviewed by me. Would that make it more trustworthy?
Of course, the answer is yes, because I sometimes use AI on meetings like Zoom, and you know, you would want to actually, you know, edit that. Sometimes you edit, sometimes you just send it just like that, and the recipients know that this is an AI generated summary. So at least they are quite cautious, just in case maybe it couldn't really pick, you know, certain I don't know if it's voices, I'm getting, trying to get familiar with languages, like what did you say? Arithmetic? What you call those? The
Algorithms.
input? Yeah.
Algorithms.
So just in case maybe it didn't get maybe certain portions so clearly, sometimes you can even also get from the summary that probably maybe somebody was breaking out, so it couldn't really maybe get that perfectly well. So it didn't capture maybe particular points very well. Yeah,
Right.
so yeah, it makes sense to actually, mention to the people that the summary is AI generated, and if at all you can go ahead to edit that, and yeah, it builds trust. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, we've gone over. Thank you so much. This has been fantastic. Tom, let's connect. I don't even, well, let's do this really quickly. What is your biggest takeaway from this? Daniel, let's start with you. What's your biggest takeaway?
Noel, just the last part of using AI to build trust, and you talked about reducing time of email responses, follow-up emails. I think that's one big takeaway, something that probably I would want to make use of as well. It's not something that really crossed my mind. Yeah, yeah, most of the time maybe it's Zoom and trying to get summary and so on, but quite very interesting to learn that it can also, the follow-up email could actually help build trust.
Yep, that's my favorite. Tom, what's your biggest takeaway?
Probably that 45 minutes isn't enough to talk about this topic.
I know, definitely. Maybe we'll do another conversation on it.
Yeah, I think it is just so massive. Even just with, I completely get what Daniel's saying, but the question that came to my mind is, we want a fast response. So we get a fast response. How do we feel that that fast response is coming from a computer and not from the person we contacted? I mentioned that because I saw, I can't remember which company it was, quite one of the major corporate organizations in this country, and they were talking about their recruitment process and how brilliant it was. And one of the reasons that it was so brilliant was because it gave this automated response to the applicants. And I was like, yeah, that's both brilliant because at least they're getting something, but then it just raises a new problem, which is, yeah, but it's a computer doing it. The computer doesn't really know lots. So it was the same with your question about, transparency, good or bad. And my response to that would have been yes and no, because transparency, I think, of course, but the thing with transparency is it's communication. And what we can't control is how the other person will respond to that transparency. So if you upload videos to YouTube, one of the questions it will ask you is, have you used AI, or does this contain AI in the video? Well, that's great. And I think that's really important that we should be saying that. But there may be people out there who are going to just say, oh my God, look, AI is getting into this now.
Well, and it doesn't leave room for the question of so how much of it is AI and how much of it is is the person.
Yeah.
Trace, what's your biggest takeaway?
The URL you shared about, what AI app to use, and just being thoughtful about, another thought I had at the end here was not overusing AI, because then you're no longer an expert that people are relying on, because you're getting a lot of your information from AI. So what do they need you for when they could just go to AI?
Yeah, that's a good point. Hey, mark that down, Tracy, and let's talk about that in one of our meetings. All right,
Sure.
real quick. Was this webinar helpful? Kate, can we launch that poll? Should be in the template. Do we have it available to launch? Kate, I know she's looking.
I am looking.
All right, let's just vote with our fingers. I got a thumbs up from Tom. There we go. Great. How valuable was this webinar? Give us a quick Thumbs up, thumbs down, hated it, excellent, awesome, fabulous. Thank you so much. I will send out a link to the recording. And I want to thank you all for your time. This has been a fantastic, Tom, especially. I'm going to stop recording here. Kate, can you stop recording, please?